Imagine this: a mask, not for hiding, but for revealing your truest self. For Leo Lyric Jackson, a gifted poet, his stylized mask was his shield, his confidence, the very key that unlocked his voice in front of a crowd. But one night, that same key would be twisted into a weapon against him. This is the story of how an artist's identity was mistaken for a criminal's disguise, and how a community fought back to protect the freedom of expression. Our story unfolds in a vibrant arts district, buzzing with the energy of a late-night poetry jam. Leo has just stepped off the stage, his performance still hanging in the air. He's surrounded by a small group of admirers, his distinctive black leather and copper mask still in place. It's a part of his art, his persona. But to Officer Carl Hayes, cruising by, it was a red flag. He saw a mask and assumed the worst, completely blind to the context of the artistic celebration around him. Officer Hayes slammed his car door and strode towards the group, his hand already resting on his weapon. The celebratory mood instantly soured. "Take the mask off now. Identification," he barked. For Leo, who lived with severe social anxiety, the aggressive command was like a physical blow. The mask was his anchor in social situations, and without it, he felt adrift. Startled, he tried to comply. He kept his hands visible, even attempting a simple sign for artistic persona as he slowly reached for his wallet. When anxiety hit, he often became nonverbal. But Officer Hayes didn't see a man struggling with anxiety. He saw defiance. "You heard me." He yelled, "You don't have the right to hide your face." The officer's paranoia was escalating, and he was about to cross a line from which there was no return. Before Leo could even get his wallet out, before he could process the officer's rapid-fire demands, Hayes lunged. He didn't just ask for the mask to be removed, he tore it off. His fingers dug into the delicate leather, and with a violent rip, he stripped Leo of his artistic identity. The straps snapped, leaving a raw, painful scrape across Leo's cheekbone. Imagine the shock, the violation, exposed, vulnerable, and consumed by a wave of pure panic. Leo recoiled. He instinctively threw his hands up to cover his now bare face. It was a purely defensive, human reaction. But in Officer Hayes's twisted view, this flinch was an assaultive motion. In an instant, Hayes tackled Leo, slamming his head against the hard pavement. The crowd screamed in horror as the officer cuffed the dazed and injured artist. The charges: assaulting an officer and failure to identify. The official police report would later paint a chillingly false picture, describing Leo's artistic mask as a disguise used to conceal identity, and his flinch as the act of a violent subject resisting arrest. Leo was stripped of his mask, his dignity, and his freedom, all in a matter of seconds. This is where the story could have ended, with another life derailed by a false report and a system that seemed stacked against the individual. But this wasn't just any individual. This was an artist, and he was part of a community that saw everything. Leo's lawyer, Sonia Gupta, knew her greatest weapon wasn't in a law book. It was in the hands and phones of the people who witnessed the injustice. This was an arts event. People were filming. What emerged was a tapestry of evidence, a collection of 4 different high-quality videos from 4 distinct angles. The footage was undeniable. It showed Leo's calm demeanor, his slow, non-threatening movements, the shocking violence of the mask being ripped from his face, and his purely defensive flinch. The officer's narrative was already crumbling. Sonia Gupta built a case that was as creative as the community she was defending. She didn't just show the videos. She educated the court on the very nature of identity. She brought in an art history professor and a cultural anthropologist. They testified that Leo's mask wasn't a disguise in the criminal sense. It was a recognized form of performance art, a tradition spanning centuries. But more than that, it was a therapeutic tool, a way for someone with severe social anxiety to engage with the world. This expert testimony completely dismantled the officer's claim that the mask was inherently suspicious. Then, Leo's friends and fellow poets took the stand. They painted a picture of a gentle, quiet man whose non-verbal moments under stress were a known symptom of his disability, not an act of defiance. The prosecution's case, built on Officer Hayes's paranoia, was being systematically taken apart, piece by piece. The courtroom battle was intense, but the truth was clear. Sonia Gupta argued that this was a case of unlawful profiling. Officer Hayes hadn't reacted to a crime. He had reacted to an appearance he didn't understand and didn't like. His prejudice, she argued, was a violation of Leo's First Amendment right to artistic expression. The key point was this. The first act of violence wasn't Leo's flinch. It was the officer's aggressive act of ripping the mask from his face. That was the initial assault. The jury saw it too. They returned a verdict quickly, not guilty on all counts. Justice had been served in the criminal court, but the fight wasn't over. The victory paved the way for a civil lawsuit. The city, faced with overwhelming evidence and public outrage, settled. The settlement was substantial, covering Leo's medical bills and acknowledging the profound emotional trauma he had endured. But the impact went far beyond financial compensation. Officer Hayes was fired for excessive force and for letting his personal bias lead to a wrongful arrest. The city was forced to change. A new expressive rights protocol was created. This meant mandatory training for all officers on how to de-escalate situations involving public art, costumes, and even religious face coverings. The goal was to ensure no one would ever confuse artistic identity with criminal intent again. And what about Leo? He could have retreated, his trauma reinforcing his anxiety, but he didn't. He took his settlement and poured it back into the community that stood by him. He founded a non-profit dedicated to supporting and protecting artists' costumes and other unconventional forms of identity in their work. He transformed a moment of profound vulnerability into a powerful platform for creative freedom. Leo's story is a powerful reminder that an attack on expression is an attack on identity itself, and that when a community stands together, its collective voice can be louder than any siren. Thank you so much for watching and for letting us share this incredible story with you. If you were moved by Leo's journey, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more stories of justice and resilience. See you next time.